Welcome to Radicards TV on Radicards.com. I'm your host, Patrick Greeno, and today joining us again is Ryan Cracknell, hobby editor of Beckett Media. Thank you, Ryan, for joining us.
Thank you.
Of course. In this episode, we're doing Radicards questions. If you're unfamiliar with this format, it's 3 questions, 5 minutes each, and I always forget this. I have to pull my phone out and start timing. Question number 1. In what ways do grading and authentication services impact the collectability of raw cards?
Ooh, like kind of pros and cons? Is that what you're thinking?
Whatever comes to mind.
All right. For me, I'll go from the perspective, I don't send stuff in to get graded. I have various reasons for that, from living in Canada with shipping costs to it's money that I could be spending on cards. And also, I personally, as cheesy as it sounds, I work for Beckett. Beckett grades cards. I don't even want to approach that conflict of interest. So I would do it if I was going through someone who didn't, basically to cover so that they don't know that they're grading my cards. But that said, I haven't submitted anything myself since the 1990s to any company. I have bought graded cards, and the reason for it is a couple fold, which may even tie into bigger issues, and I'm already rambling, and we're on a time here. What I like about graded cards is when I'm buying them now, it's for more expensive stuff. When I'm looking at a $5 card, I'm not worried about grade. If it's a little off condition, so what? If it's a $5 card, it's strictly for my enjoyment. But what I'm shifting my collection towards now is, instead of buying in bulk, I'm buying more nicer stuff. So I'm saving up a little while and spending a little more money on a single card. For that reason, I want something that's graded, because even though I'm not investing, I want to protect my investment, if that makes sense. If I'm going to spend a lot of money, if I come in a bind, I want to easily be able to sell it when it's graded. There's really, yes, some graded cards are better than others, even in the same grade, but there's little dispute. On the little more morbid side is, if something ever happens to me too, there's my wife and my kids who have to dispose of my cards. Mm-hmm. They're not Pokemon, so they don't want anything to do with them. They might keep a few things here and there as mementos, but graded cards also make it easier for anyone to dispose of something. Like, my wife could just put up, here's Bryce Harper 2011 Bowman Chrome, blah, 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 on eBay, and away it goes. There's no dispute about it. She doesn't need to know anything about cards. She doesn't need to look through a microscope. It's right there. So those are my main ones. Also, when it comes to vintage and expensive stuff, it's also that peace of mind, not the investment monetarily, but if it's been graded, maybe not perfect, but there's a better chance that, it's legit. I know Andy Broom from Beckett Grading. Man, that guy, if you don't follow him on Twitter, you should. I can't think of his handle right now, but he puts out, like, all the time whenever he comes across something fake. That guy knows his stuff. Really, really, really good at what he does, and I know there's lots of others out there that are as well. So it's that peace of mind of knowing that it's real, or 99.9% chance that it is. It's a possibility. The odd thing may slip through. I don't know, but I trust. So there's that trust.
Excellent. That's good feedback. When I think of, when I'm out shopping at shops and shows and I see raw cards, knowing that I can get a graded example or I can get the raw example at a significantly less cost, with the chance of it, if I ever submit it to grading to have a higher return, I start to pay closer attention to things like centering and edges and corners and surface and all of the big 4 subcategories, especially with Beckett, because I know that will impact the quality of when I do submit it, what it's going to look like at least, I can learn about what that would look like. So that helps me pay closer attention to the raw cards, right? Mm-hmm. And I can really appreciate that. And then I can also say, okay, to throw my hands up and be like, maybe I just want, a really hammered copy of something, and I might get it for $1 instead of $500 because it's got a small crease or a large crease, and it's been roughed up on the surface and the corners are rounded and everything like that. and so I don't worry about it as much, and so I'm able to get a nice vintage card that to me is a good add-in, even though it's not the best quality because I don't ever consider getting that particular example graded. But if it's a nice, clean, better, good centering, sharp corners, great edges, and clean surface, then I might consider, hey, maybe this is a good graded example. So, good stuff, really good stuff to talk about. I think how grading authentication impacts the collectability of a raw card, and you brought up some great points about should somebody that may or may not know a lot about cards end up selling cards, if they're graded, they have a higher chance of having a more significant return. Like a mint Ryan rookie, 68 tops, in raw conditions, you can get a couple of $100. You can get a really clean copy. PSA graded 9 copy of that card could fetch thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
Wasn't it 50 or 60 not too long ago off the top of my head? 50
Has
or
it gone
60?
up to 50 and 60 for a 9? Because the last one I saw 2 years ago was 25 grand.
Oh yeah, no, it's even the last 2 years. Vintage high-end stuff is
really
crazy. There's a mantle right now. I think it's an 8 or an 8.5. It's not even done, and it's over 600.
That's incredible.
So,
incredible, amazing stuff. Good stuff to talk about. So, question 2. Had Donruss and Fleer not entered the market as baseball card manufacturers in 1981, would we have seen a Tiffany set by Topps in 1984?
I have no idea.
Well, think about this. When new card companies entered the market in 81, Topps no longer had the monopoly on card manufacturing anymore. So they had to up their game a bit and change things up and make things more premium. And so Tiffany was sort of a byproduct, at least in my opinion, of the stronger market presence in terms of competition, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what we see in 91 when Stadium Club was released, right? And other things later on down the line. Every company had to up their game to stay competitive and innovative. I mean, it's sort of like, innovate or die as a business. It's always been the way it is, right?
Yep,
Change with the market or you'll dissolve. So I think the Tiffany set's a direct result of an effort to maintain market share and market position because of other competitors in the market. So had Topps remained the monopoly, would we have ever seen a Tiffany set?
I don't know if the Tiffany set was a reaction to Fleer and Donruss, or if it was more just a growing market. Did the market grow because Fleer and Donruss came along? I don't actually know. I wasn't collecting at that time, so I don't know what the mindset was.
Right.
But whether it was the market was growing, because didn't the Tiffany sets? Do you know what time of year they came out? Was it? I would assume it would be towards the end of the year, versus the middle of the year. So if that would be part of it. The print runs are so small on those compared to everything else that they produced. Even then, to me, it seems kind of a niche kind of test thing. So if Fleer and I don't think Fleer would have made their glossy sets if Tiffany didn't exist.
Okay, fair.
Because those came along, in the later '80s, but those were also a mail-in thing. So I can't speak for them. I'm grateful that they exist. That's for certain. But I think as far as the innovation goes and the quality, I think you got to look to '89 Upper Deck. Because if the Tiffany sets were making enough of an impact in the mid '80s. And into before Upper Deck came along, I think we would have seen that innovation, glossy become the norm much sooner than that, or at least some sort of souped up version beyond just a box set that was, casually sold. Well, I don't want to say casually sold, but that was a very hobby driven thing versus, going to the store and getting your regular pack. So I can't say for certain. I could maybe that pushed them, certainly. Because now that you have competition, you got to try new things. If you don't have competition, do what works and leave it at that. And, as long as you're growing and profiting to a certain extent, that's fine. But
I think you bring up an interesting point about how, Upper Deck came in '89 and then, Tiffany was still going on, but actually Tiffany stopped in '91. That was their final release. There wasn't any more beyond that. And you have to wonder, okay, if Tiffany had made that big of an impact in the 80s, maybe it dwindled to the point where it wasn't making as much of an impact in 91 when all these new technologies were coming out. Or coming down to cost, looking at it from a strictly economical perspective, is that was the Tiffany release, did the profit over cost stop making sense in 91? Like, was it no longer popular because in 91 we're already 2 years into big technologies coming out,
Hmm.
and did Topps move their direction into, say, the Stadium Club cost to produce that run and other things to come later, with Chrome in 96 and Bowman Chrome coming out in 97, and and so I think about that too. Did Tiffany dwindle out because of the profit over cost ratio was squeezed in such a way that funds could be routed and better used elsewhere during those latter years, that last final year actually for Tiffany.
Absolutely. Even 91, I think that was the year that production was even cut, quite low. And if you look at 92, the first year without Tiffany, the quality of tops is way better, like huge leaps from 91 to 92, going from the gray back to the bright whites. And so maybe it could have also been in 92. It's like, you know what, the quality of our regular set plus, your dwindling profits, let's just scrap it.
Yeah, the 91 Tiffany, the traded set specifically, is the one that's significantly short printed.
Okay.
That block of cards there, and you can look at the PSA 10 copies of some of the key rookies in that set are doing quite well in today's market, but that set, those ones there had a significantly shorter print run, to my understanding, than the other Tiffany sets that came prior.
Yeah,
So,
no, I'm thinking now. I was actually looking a couple months ago at the Bagwell. I remember a raw one was like $50
mhm.
versus I finally got the 1990 Thomas I think over the holidays, and that wasn't to me. Frank Thomas is, and I'm sure you would agree. Frank Thomas is better than Bagwell.
Well, if
At
you look
least
at
in my hobby
statistics,
world, it
he would have to
is.
be right.
So yeah, that was one that I knocked off. So, but yeah, I do remember. I'm like, I can't justify $50 on a Bagwell right at the time. One day, the Tiffany collection continues, so it'll
Totally.
get filled in one day.
Got to get the Ivan Rodriguez in there too, and the Luis Gonzalez. You can't forget about him. He's in the
I'll
91
I'll
traded
forget
set
about
too.
Luis Gonzalez for a while.
Awesome, awesome. I love it. I love it. Question number 3. Had Pinnacle remained in business, do you think they would have followed suit with the other card companies and produced game used cards, or knowing their aptitude for innovation, would they have done something completely different?
No, they would have done game used. It just would have looked a whole lot wilder and been crazier designs and everything else. When the game used card first came in, it was pretty much here's a game used card and that's it. I think Pinnacle probably would have added some pizzazz and flash and dewfects, maybe some die cut edges in that a little bit sooner than we saw. But no, that was the way. That was just a wave that hit, and within a couple years, everyone was doing it. They're still, I don't know, slowing down a little bit, but everyone's still doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that's
that's
something I think about. Like, if they were to do game used, like, how would it be packaged and delivered to the market? Because they were doing some really cool stuff right before they left, like the cards in the can. They had the Pinnacle inside with the baseball diamond package. It looked like a home base with Express Pinnacle
mhm.
Express. I actually have
Yep.
one still. Those are really cool. Um, and just some of the different ways that they were releasing products into the market. Totally certified uh, boxes were triangles. You might remember in '97. The really unique
Exactly. That was a big
packaging.
deal buying one pack of that stuff for me.
Yeah,
I think it was like $7, and it's like, whoa, that's a lot for a pack of cards.
and you get
So
3 cards,
all numbered,
all
all numbered.
numbered. You
I
got the
still have mine
blues and the
because I
reds and the
bought the
possibility
pack.
for a
And
very elusive gold. I thought those
oh,
cards were fantastic. But going back to it, you know, if they were to do something like that, what would the packaging look like? Would it be just a box, or would it be served up in a box in the shape of a baseball glove or something really unique like that? I often wonder what could have been with Pinnacle because of where they were going, where they were headed with innovations, and they were always, I felt, in a lot of ways beyond where their years were with regard to innovation. I mean, Pacific, that you can argue that Pacific was that way too. I always make that statement that Pacific was years ahead of its time. I look at Pinnacle that way too. They were so far ahead, thinking about so many different unique things to do, that to think about what jersey cards would look like in Dufex technology surfaces would be just really kind of fascinating.
Yeah, I could see them. Definitely, a Pinnacle thing would have been something that Fleer did in the early 2000s with wrestling. They put like a whole piece of canvas in the card, and then they print it on top of the canvas. I don't know how that would work with a jersey, but definitely something like a game used ball. You know, you could probably take out the leather, flatten it out, print it, and I don't know. But I also wonder, do we look back fondly on Pinnacle more than I don't remember loving Pinnacle as much now as I did back, back in their later days.
Right.
Like they were kind of weird. But I guess that's being ahead of your time. If you're like norm at the time, then people aren't going to say that you're ahead. So maybe that's why. But for all their cool stuff, there was some really crazy, like, I don't know. Some of the stuff was better than others. And that's the same with Pacific. Some of the Pacific stuff I love, or I'll love most of it. But then there's like one small design thing that I'm just like, ew. Like the fonts, Pacific fonts for the most part, just don't do it for me. But like the shapes and the designs and everything else, I liked a lot. But also, was the innovation part of their downfall from all that investment? Did they do too much too fast, which cost too much, but then it was a reaction to a falling marketplace? I don't know. It's all kind of chicken and egg and everything else. But man, they look cool now.
You know, you talk about them. We talk about them being ahead of their years. So we had to catch up, right, to where they became relevant to us, and that took years after they went out. And I think at the time of their devastation, I think it's a possibility that if you look back in 1998 with all the Pinnacle releases, there were a lot of them.
Yeah.
Between Pinnacle Plus, Pinnacle Inside, Pinnacle Performers, Pinnacle Express. I can't even list them all offhand right now, but I just remember Pinnacle Certified, Pinnacle Totally Certified. And so it's like the list goes kind of on, and you have to think like, okay, I kind of see where this was going, but it took us, I think, a long time to look back and say, wow, they were really on top of what they were doing back then. Granted, it was costing a lot of money, but some of the stuff they've released is, on a lot of people's most wanted lists. Even for me, there are several cards I'm still after that are Pinnacle releases, and I just never see them. And so, good stuff, man. Good stuff. Do you have any final thoughts?
No.
Okay.
I'm good.
Thank you for watching another episode of Radicards TV and Radicards.com. Thank you, Ryan Cracknell, for joining us. And until next time, enjoy collecting. If you like this video, please subscribe. Enjoy collecting. Thank you.